would like to invite Isabel from DG Move, our project coordinator. So please, Isabel, if you could share your screen if and start, please go ahead, Isabel.
So I do not have a presentation, so I will not share my screen. So hello, everybody. I am Isabel Van Doorn. I am the Deputy Head of Unit dealing with Research and Innovation and Urban Mobility in DG Move. I have been following the topic of urban vehicle access regulation for more than 4 years now. And I am, let's say, project manager at interim because our colleague dealing with it left the unit, and we are waiting for a new colleague. So I am here a bit to give you a bit what maybe the word strategy is a bit too strong, but to give you information about how we see our role from the European Commission in dealing with urban vehicle access regulation. You know that it is a hot topic, that we have different viewpoints, and all viewpoints are valid actually. So we need to see how we can progress together, so how we can bring there is an echo, how we can bring all, let's say, all the perspective looking at the same direction. So if we can find a win-win. Because we know that urban vehicle access regulation are there for good reason, for congestion management, for air quality, mainly air quality. And we look at low emission zones because basically the one dealing with air quality are maybe the most frequent one. And they are there for good reason, but we know also that some stakeholders, the drivers, the businesses, may have difficulties to cope with all these different rules. And the Commission has so far worked on the information side, and we are moving towards the digitalization phase, if I may say so. So we are looking at digital and technical solution, at least from my unit. I have also other colleagues that I think are also in the webinar, who are also looking at urban vehicle access regulation from their perspective, from the perspective of the cross-border enforcement directive or from the EETS directive. So we have different instruments at with our hands, and we need to see how we can help having a more efficient urban vehicle access regulation. So if I come back a bit, if I list a bit what we have been doing, so we have, of course, during the negotiation on the regulation on the single digital gateway, information related to urban vehicle access regulation were inserted in the text of the regulation. So the authorities are supposed to provide information on the urban vehicle access regulation, and they are supposed also to provide information on how to buy the stickers. Then we have also 2 projects funded by, so we have received money from the European Parliament. So it's called European Parliament Preparatory Action. So we receive money to prepare the ground for action. The first one is called UVAR Box, and is focusing on providing a user-friendly tool to cities to provide data in a standardized format. And then we have this project, which aims at improving the communication of information to drivers in the vicinity of UVAR zones to improve access to information. And we would like also to go beyond and to help both the cities and the driver to have the relevant information on the characteristic of the vehicle and hopefully of the driver. And we want to continue working on this. Another result will be the revision of the delegated regulation on real-time traffic information, where we will give more access to static and dynamic data to include new data sets, including data sets related to urban vehicle access regulation. So you see that the work of UVAR box has been transferred, if I may say so, to the delegated regulation or the future revised delegated regulation. And we hope that we can also do that with UVAR Exchange. So this is why UVAR Exchange is very important for us. We want to use what is done now to move forward and to prepare the ground for the next steps. What we see as the next step is to continue to work on the digital and technical solution. And next year we will launch an extra study to really go further in the in the details of what is the technical and digital solution we need at EU level to have efficient urban vehicle access regulation. So this is quite important, and I hope that we will have other good results of this project so that we can continue to prove. So all in all, what we do today is the preparatory work that we will take us, the Commission, we will take that to move forward. Of course, beside, we will also see what, and it is not me, it is my colleagues from MOVE C2, the Road Safety Unit with the CBE directive. They will try to see what they can do for urban vehicle regulation, at least the ones that are relevant for that directive. You will see a bit what I have described in our communication that will be published tomorrow, because tomorrow is the date of adoption of the winter package, where you will have the revision, the proposed revision of the ITS directive, the proposed revision of the TEN-T regulation, the new EU approach to urban mobility. So you will have interesting reading from tomorrow noon. I would stop here and I would give back the floor.
Thank you so much, Isabel, for that introduction and for setting the tone for our meeting and in context. Now I would like to give the floor to Maria Rodriguez, our project manager. So Maria, please, if you could share your screen and turn on your camera.
Yes, I think you can see my screen at the moment.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. So I won't welcome you again, but I will definitely say thank you to Isabel and for your words about and your explanation about the importance of UVARs. And what we will present today and discuss with you is the project UVAR Exchange that we started this year. And my name is Maria Rodriguez, and I have the pleasure of being the project manager of this project. So this project, we have two key objectives. So the first one is focused on improving the communication to the drivers via physical signage, variable message signs, and cooperative intelligent transport systems that goes directly into the vehicle. And the other key objective that we have is to improve the cross-border exchange of technical vehicle and also vehicle owner driver information to the cities to facilitate this difficult task of identifying foreign vehicles, and also to make the compliance check and the enforcements of UVARs. These are the faces of UVAR Exchange, and the companies that are partners of this project is Pantaya. We are doing the project management of the project. Then we have Corte, we have Austriatech, we have TRT, we have MapTM, we have Armis, and our dear friend Lucy from Sadler Consultants. So altogether, we have two key topics that we are focusing our work on. So the first one, as we mentioned, is about information provision. And here we will focus on practical aspects of UVAR information provision. There will be some guidelines available in February. We will develop this common EU approach to signage, and also we will have this block about the UVAR information via variable messages signs, VMS. And for this, we are organizing a demonstration that we will present in the first session of today, which is on the harmonization of physical road signs and VMS messages. The team that is responsible for this topic that will focus more on this is TRT, Corte, Austriatech, Armis, and MapTM. And then our second demo is focused on CITS message to vehicle with UVAR information. And this will be also presented in a session today by Martin. So our second focus area, if we call it like this, it's on cross-border data sharing. And here we aim to identify the legal, administrative, and technical barriers to cross-border sharing of data that still exist, and also to provide recommendations on how to overcome those barriers. And to start understanding the challenges for UVARs, we have launched this survey that several of you have replied and supported us with that, which we appreciated very much, because we really need your support to be able to make this project a success, especially for Isabel. And on this topic, we will have a demo that focuses in two different aspects. So we have to demonstrate the vehicle technical information to check for compliance. And on the other hand, also to be able to check the driver holder owner information for the enforcement. The main team here for this part will be Corte and MapTM. And then finally, I won't bother you more with this overview. We will go more into depth along the day. You have here in these slides the project information, the link that you can use where we will put all the presentations and more information about the development of the project. And for us to be able to contact you, it would be really good if you could sign up to our mailing list so that we can send you information about UVARs and can keep you updated in terms of the development that we will do. So, Carolina, I think now we will start with the next session.
Yes, Cosimo, I see you already there.
Yeah.
So please go ahead.
Okay,
Thank you so much, Maria.
Let's go ahead. Just let me share the screen. Oh, okay. I hope you can see the screen. Okay, let's start this workshop with a brief introduction about some UVAR typologies. We would like, of course, to start saying what, of course, for our work will be the target UVARs that will focus more. And of course, in a definition, what we have from the very beginning is that, of course, in different national legislation, every competent authority may restrict access to a certain area, to a road or a portion of the road. And this might happen to the general motor traffic or to some specific categories only. There are many justifications for this type of traffic order or organization of the roads network that are, of course, for safety, health, environmental, most frequently also for heritage protection, but sometimes also for purely mobility reasons, like avoiding through traffic. Of course, we are talking about urban vehicle access regulation. The urban, but let's say the metropolitan areas is exactly where the majority of these regulations happen. Our typologies, we decided to focus on these 5 typologies. Of course, we will focus more on some of them, but it's important also to understand which are the rules, the behavior, the problems that we might have in some other areas, like, as you can see, the pedestrian zones, the limited traffic zone, the low or the zero emission zone, the congestion charge, and the pedestrian priority zone. These are really relevant also to analyzing the different problems. So let's start with the first one. In almost every city, we have this very first and basic UVAR typology, and in a pedestrian zone, no motor traffic is allowed, apart for some very, very limited exceptions, like the residence or deliveries in some specific time windows. Sometimes, of course, bicycles are accepted, and the objectives are livability, safety, social interaction, and most of the time also protection of sensitive sites. We might have pedestrian zone in a square or a road or a group of contiguous roads. This, of course, might be fragmented city portion or all, but we also have examples and cases in Europe of fully pedestrianized city centers. Most of the time, these areas are enforced by physical intervention or bollards, fixed bollards, moving bollards, but this is what we are also quite, it's quite obvious that when, as a driver, we are entering a pedestrian zone, and sometimes we can have also very, very long corridors in city centers. So of course, it's important also to understand where these pedestrian zones are located, how we can access the cities, where of course we are allowed to drive or not. This is an example from the city of Varna in Bulgaria. But we can also have situations in which, for example, during Sundays, there are many pedestrian zones active, or also during public holidays. Here you can see the scheme that is called Paris Respire, and that is active mostly during the weekends, but also in some areas, as we will see later on, also during the wall here. And of course, in this situation, we might have temporary pedestrian zones with of course, time validity. Limited traffic zones. In limited traffic zones, we restrict access to only those motorized trips that are considered necessary for the functioning daily life of the area. An LTZ work with permits. We might have permanent permits, for example, for residents, for those who have to deal with deliveries. There are many other situations, garage owners, for example. But we might have also occasional permits, and we have also exemptions. Most of the time, the exemptions are those from the police or public transports. They do not need to be pre-registered, but most of the time, pre-registration is needed. Again, the objective is to reduce congestions, motor traffic, to the really very essential. And there's also a policy on the policy side that's a way of favoring walking, cycling, and public transport. We may have wider areas. Most of the time, we use limited traffic zone for protecting the historical centers. And usually, we have camera enforcement systems. The very first limited traffic zone in Europe was introduced in 1965 in the city of Siena in Italy. Currently, we have like 350 LTZ in Italy, camera enforced, but there are many more also in other countries having different names. We also have, for example, the car-free areas of Ghent, the city center of Ghent, that is protected by camera and sometimes also with boilers. We have discussion in cities, in European capitals, of extending and introducing new limited traffic zones, like, for example, in Paris, or the discussion around the car-free area in the city center of Berlin. And now we have the low emission zone. That's this typology of UVAR restrict access to those vehicle categories that meet set minimum exhaust emission standards. This UVAR typology works with the number plate recognition systems, with stickers, also with exemptions. The objective is here to reduce air pollution other than motor traffic, even if a reduction in motor traffic happens in the short term. There's an acceleration in the fleet renewal, but normally these UVAR types cover wider areas, most of the time city or metropolitan borders. The Maya have stricter rules that led to so-called ultra low emission zone, but also zero emission zone. So of course it depends on the level of the restrictions. We have some example here where we can have, you can see the examples from Rome and Barcelona. As you can see, the areas are most of the time very large, but sometimes they might be also quite compact. The congestion charge zone. Here, motor traffic is not restricted, so there's not a restriction, but all vehicles are subject to a daily charge. You need to know that you need to pay to enter a congestion charge zone. Normally, charges are differentially applied, so there are, of course, tariffs that are different depending on the type of vehicle, depending if you are a resident or not, etc. Again, we have the number plate recognition scene, so they work with cameras, sometimes also with transponders. There's a need of checking, of course, the payment, and there are, again, exemptions, so vehicles that are exempted from paying the charge. Here, the objective is to reduce the congestion, and there's a kind of parallel between, for example, a limited traffic zone in terms of objectives and a congestion charge, but also a low emission zone or an ultra low emission zone, linking this to what is another typology, the pollution charge. In London, for example, you have to pay if you do not meet an emission standard. You can enter with your older vehicle, but you need to pay a charge. That, of course, again, this might cover city cores, but also wider central areas. Here you can see some examples. These are from the city of Milan, where the scheme is called Area C. But we have also the scheme implemented in Stockholm. It's a cordon-based, so you need to, of course, to pass through certain gates to and that your plate is checked, and a road sign on the congestion charge scheme in the central zone of the city of London. Of course, you can look for dots. There are many dots in Europe. The blue ones are for LTZ most of the time. As you can see, there are many examples of UVARs implemented in cities, and that are quite a lot, and sometimes also put together in different ways. We will see later on. This is the website for the CLARS database. And the pedestrian priority, we decided to include this typology where motor traffic here is not restricted, but neither subject to charge, but it's regulated and drivers have to adapt their behavior. This can be done also through changes in the spatial road layouts. What we have seen is that, for example, some areas, portion of the cities are growing in such sense. We can think about the Superilla, Supermanzanas, for example, in Spain. But we have the most common residential areas, or the WUNERV, the encounter zone. We decided to include this in our analysis because of the fact that, of course, here, there's not a restriction, but there are portions of the cities that are becoming, let's say, areas in which you might have to drive and face with some special intervention, limited access, or using traffic filters to avoid through traffic. And this is quite common. You can see an example from Barcelona and the Superblock in Sant Antoni, where, of course, traffic filters are regulating, of course, the traffic inside the neighborhood. Zonal, we won't focus quite a lot on punctual UVARs. There are many punctual UVARs, or at least street closures, temporary street closure, for example, for weekly street markets. But we are interested in analyzing the impacts on those zonal UVAR, so those who are bordered by and where certain rules apply inside the zone. This was really an introduction, but now I would like to give you just to introduce also our task number one. So the work we will do in road signs for UVAR. Of course, we will focus on the provision to information provision to drivers that are approaching, that are in the vicinity, or also inside an UVAR. We might have vertical horizontal physical road signs, but also variable message signs. And we will see also the increasingly important cooperative ITS messaging that will be are sent directly to the vehicles or to the drivers. The question is, do drivers receive complete, clear information? They can really understand the scheme, can adapt in time their behavior. That will be our main focus. And in terms of road signs, of course, we have different typologies of signs. The advanced wording, those signs advising that are on motorways already, and you can see information about that. There might be some restrictions entering in a city or in a metropolitan area. Some additional advanced signs, those that could allow you to make a detour and avoid, for example, to enter through a camera-controlled gate. At gate, of course, there are other road signs, and sometimes also inside the zone, you are warned about the fact that you should be aware of the fact that you are inside a certain UVAR zone. We will focus on design elements. So we will try to see how in different countries both pictograms, text are combined together for the different UVAR typologies in a way that information is clear, information is maybe harmonized or similar, or we would like also to find out some, let's say, best practice or bad practices. We have already collected also a number of guidelines, national or regional guidelines that have been already published, and the idea is to put together the good things. There are other elements, the positioning of the physical signs or VMS, the distances, some peculiarities, regional versus urban UVARs, or of course, information change a lot if a UVAR is temporary or is an emergency scheme, for example, applying under certain circumstances, or if it's permanent. The behavior change and also the road sign change. We will try to focus on the use of words or some optimal use of pictograms in a way of favoring harmonization or to push countries or cities in adopting a way of being also having clear and understandable road signs. There's an integration with the cooperative ITS, of course, and we'll try to explore the possibility of having new signage for new types of UVAR, like, of course, the zero emission zone, for example, or slightly adapting what we already have. It's very important to say that we won't focus on the effectiveness of a certain scheme, of a certain UVAR, if, for example, a low emission zone is quite is applied in a tiny area. There might be consequences in terms of topography, in terms of how to combine different UVARs in one sole area, for example. That is also quite relevant in terms of information provision. We will try to look at these factors. We won't go into the details of exploring the benefits of one scheme from another, for example, making these comparisons. We are not talking about the policy and about the decision of the cities, of course, in this exercise, in this work, but we will try to look at those factors that are relevant, because if the system is complex, then of course there will be consequences in the way the information should be provided to the drivers. And we will try to look for sort of harmonization, a way of influencing simpler, easy to understand schemes because of the need of giving proper, clear and understandable information also through road signs. Our activities, first, we have already started to analyze the current practices across Europe. We will see in session number 1 also what we have already done. As I've seen, as I said, we also collected guidelines, and we had already some bilateral exchange with some national authorities. A core activity is to build up a common European approach at UNSC level, and we started already to work in close collaboration, thanks to Quartet, to our partner Quartet, to the UN group of experts on road signs and signals, of course, also with the European Commission. The idea is to seek harmonization, or at least to be there to provide our support in giving them useful recommendation, or try to figure out how we can push certain elements also within our group of cities. We have to provide really a short report on UVAR signage, guidelines on VMS. So in terms of, let's say, we will be quite compact and clear also in an attempt to provide inputs. But very important is the conduction of these two demonstrators, one about UVAR signage and the other one on collaborative ITS. There's really a gallery of road signs that we have already collected. As you can see, there are different approaches in countries that are adopted for low emission zone, for example, a new sign, putting a new symbol inside the red circle, giving the order of for these polluting cars. The use of pictograms or the use of text. We will try to focus also about different ways of communicating a low emission zone through European signs. Of course, for the low emission zone, we have also a way of, in some countries, there's an associated vignette or sticker systems. In some other not, you can have directly the reference to the Euro standard, Euro emission standard. There are colors that sometimes are similar, sometimes not, and we will try to find out also how this kind of information is provided through the road signs. The limited traffic zone is the road sign that is quite similar to the one of the low emission zone. It's widely extended and used in many countries, having different acronyms, having different definitions, sometimes using also quite a lot of text, and applying this in compact area in city center most of the time. Of course, some countries use to combine different road signs, and we will try to look for this in a way to properly suggest harmonization. Some other, like the example of some examples from Spain, there are different acronyms. As I said, there's a focus on residential, giving this also in the naming, distinguishing also the way certain UVAR are organized, also in terms of information through road signage. In Spain, this is particularly true because, of course, there's not really a proper harmonization across the cities. So it's also would be good to look at some interesting examples, some also coming from Valencia, that is introducing a new LTZ in its city core. Just to give you really a flavor of what is most of the time can be recognized from a foreign drivers driving in another country. Pedestrian zones are more or less similar, even if in some cases, like in the UK, for example, they use the red circle to give an order other than the blue one giving information. But more or less, the drivers are they know quite a lot how what these road signs means. There are also the ones that are used sometimes in combination with the UVAR. So some UVAR restricting access, like for the LTZ, for the pedestrian priority, for example. Again, that's quite similar situation apart for the Italian case, but let's say where we have a mixed use of the road space, and it gives also information about the behavior that I have. Can I access the area? Yes or no, but what can I do when I'm there with my car? We started also, and we will ask you to provide your examples from real locations. we made a purely desk research now using Google Street View, but really to see also in real examples which type of road signs are used. Are they proper? Is there something, for example, concerning the size of the road signs, the size of the text, the use of pictograms? This is exactly the type of exercise we would like to do. And there's a way of trying to figure out how certain the use of road signs is improved in some countries and look for some best practices, passing from a situation in which you have a lot of information, you will need to stop with your car to really read the road sign to understand something, other than having really clear road signs where you have pictograms, where you have quite big fonts in sizes that are big enough in order to be read also at a certain distance. You can have VMS allowing you also to have a better understanding of which are the rules, and that's exactly what we would like to do, also looking at, of course, some best practices. Before closing my intervention, I would like just to give you, we will have a session about it, but the idea is to look for 2-4 cities that are willing to implement some physical demonstrations, particularly also using VMS. We will open up also the floor to other cities that would like to be followers, participating, maybe not having a physical or a practical demo, but staying with us in having also this collaborative work. This would you like to do is to have a collaborative work. We will start to fine tune this in January, February, and we'll open up and conduct this collaborative work with some design session and discussions around the group of cities participating in the demo during spring and summer. Hopefully, we hope we can have also some practical demonstration and activities during summer, and then the final demonstrator workshop in September, October. That's all by my side. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Cosimo. We have some questions and we still have 7 minutes, so you were really perfect on time.
Okay.
So Stein Verneilen says, all these type of zones, I think it's focused on the first part of your presentation, by the way. So all these types of zones are focused on car trucks, but is it also useful to define various zones? For example, shared mobility providers, for example, max speed zones for scooters, no-go zones. Are these use cases also taken into account?
Well, the fact that we included areas like, for example, those dealing with behaviors, we are pretty sure that there are in some countries, for example, we have 30-kilometer zones that are named differently from other. But we will focus, I have to say, we will focus more on those UVAR that are relevant for drivers being informed that there's a restriction in accessing a certain area. Of course, if there are categories that are where for them is not possible to enter a certain areas, or they will need to meet certain standards, including some shared vehicles, for example, or other vehicle categories. We will look also at these elements. That's why we started to have a broader perspective and having different typologies and to see what happened, because in a pedestrian zone, for example, there might be the need of including other information on the type of vehicles that are allowed or not, including, for example, micromobility or some other rules that are now growing and that are active there. So yes, we will try to do this, but of course, this is a point of discussing during the session also what we can do.
And yeah, Stein also has a question. And how dynamic can these zones be made? For example, changes triggered due to traffic jams.
You mean? Let me check. Let me check.
Yeah.
Okay. How dynamic? Yes, there are UVAR that are dynamic in a way that, for example, the use of VMS variable message signs can allow for a certain, let's say, variability of the rules. It's not so easy to answer, but because we know that in terms of zonal enforcement or applicability of a certain rules, drivers would need to adapt their behavior to know that there are certain rules applying there. So we have, particularly, we know that some limitation occur at certain time windows only, and maybe they are not valid. You can access the area in other times. Not sure if it can be practical in terms of having really in terms of traffic jam. What I can say is that definitely we have the Stockholm examples where you have to pay more if there are situations in which there's much more congestion. So some UVAR are more suited for this type of situation. But again, we will look at the information provision, not, let's say, at the functioning of the scheme.
Thank you so much, Cosimo. I think we had other remarks from Martin, from Robert. He's inviting us to look for another document, and also from Christina, but they already answered, was answered by Lucy. So thank you so much, Cosimo. I think we will, if you are interested in this topic, please, I invite you to the session 1. That will be in a couple of minutes. Thank you. So now we continue to the next session, and I invite Jayant. Yes, sorry. Can you hear me, Jayant?
Hello, good morning. Thank you, Carolina. Can you see me? Can you see my screen, and can you hear me well?
Yes, I can see you, but you are not in presentation mode in your presentation. So it's if you could put your presentation in presentation mode first.
Perfect. So thank you. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for giving me the floor. My name is Jayant Sangwan, and I'm from CORT, which is the Confederation of Organizations in Road Transport Enforcement. We are an international non-profit organization primarily representing road transport enforcement authorities across the EU, but not only. We also have within our membership the transport industry representatives, as well as EU transport associations. So now I'll move on to the topic of my presentation. Within the UR Exchange project, we are focusing essentially on the task related to UR enforcement. So we are trying to understand how the UR enforcement can be improved, especially with respect to foreign vehicles, and how this can be done through better access to the different kinds of data. The data that we are focusing on relates to the relevant technical vehicle data that may be required for UR enforcement. This includes data such as the Euro emission standards, the vehicle category, weight, etc. But also vehicle owner holder data, which is relevant if in case a non-compliance with the UR is detected and a fine needs to be issued. So we are trying to understand how access to these data can be improved in order to improve UR enforcement, especially with respect to foreign vehicles. Now, to achieve this objective within the framework of the project, we are working on different fronts. At a first level, we are trying to understand what are the key challenges and requirements that can improve cross-border data sharing, that can impact cross-border data sharing. Then we are trying to look at different solution models that can help us tackle these challenges and allow the cities and enforcement authorities to gain better access to the required data. And at third level, we are going to also work on certain demonstrators to see what demonstrations can be possible with one or more solution models to understand deeply what works and what doesn't work when it comes to exchanging this data in the context of URs. For the first aspect, which is to understand the different challenges and requirements, we launched a survey in November to ask cities as to what are the different challenges that they are facing in accessing both vehicle data as well as the vehicle owner holder data. And we try to understand these challenges at the level of technical challenges, any legal challenges, as well as administrative challenges. In addition, we've also asked cities to consider what could be the possible solutions that could facilitate in the overcoming of these challenges. If you've not already answered this particular survey, as was mentioned by Maria in the beginning, the survey is still open. Please go ahead and give us your inputs. We invite you to do so. These will be very relevant for the work that we need to do within the project. We've already started to receive some inputs as well from a lot of different cities coming from Norway, France, Hungary, Denmark, Germany, the Netherlands, Spain, Belgium. So we have started to receive inputs which are already enlightening us in terms of the different challenges. When it comes to the challenges related to the vehicle data, the technical challenges related to the vehicle data and the vehicle owner holder data, what we are seeing is that cities are telling us that this particular data is not available because of a lack of connection between cities and national vehicle registration authorities, or the inability of these national vehicle registration authorities to share this data with the cities in the context of UVARs. Some cities have also indicated that there is no technology or technical tool that can facilitate access to this data in a systematic way. So that is also a challenge that is being expressed. However, some cities have explained that when they say there is no technology or no tool, they have indicated that there may be an existing tool, but they do not have access to that tool in order to access the data required for UVAR enforcement. Another challenge that has been indicated is the inaccuracy of the data that is available. There are different practices in terms of updating this data in vehicle registers in different countries, and sometimes cities and enforcement authorities are not able to find the accurate data which allows them to enforce UVARs. So these are some of the challenges that we are seeing in terms of accessing vehicle data. When it comes to accessing the vehicle owner holder data, there are similar challenges that have been expressed. So there is the lack of availability of the data. There is, again, an indication that there is a lack of a tool or technology that can facilitate the sharing of the data. And again, it has been explained that sometimes the tool may exist, but there is no access. Then there is also, again, inaccuracy that is mentioned when it comes to also vehicle owner, holder, and driver data. Then if we consider some of the legal and administrative challenges in terms of accessing vehicle data, we are being informed that there is, of course, an absence of a legal basis that allows countries to exchange the vehicle data, relevant vehicle data between countries. Cities are indicating that there may be circumstances where this particular data is shared or exchanged between countries for other purposes, for example, some serious traffic offenses, but it is not the case, and this data doesn't reach to the city or enforcement authorities when it comes to UVARs. So for UVAR enforcement, this particular data is not being shared. There is also a challenge that sometimes the vehicle data is considered sensitive, so it is not shared. And also it is being indicated sometimes that there is a lack of resources or prioritization for UVARs, which is also a challenge in accessing the relevant vehicle data for UVAR enforcement. Same is true when it comes to the legal and administrative challenges. When we talk about the vehicle owner holder data, again, cities have pointed out there is an absence of a legal basis which allows cities to have access to the data. They have indicated again that they're aware that sometimes this data is being shared between countries for other purposes, as I mentioned before, for serious offenses. So if somebody crosses a red light, etc., this data can be shared. But not for UVARs. For UVARs, this data is and not shared with cities, and there is no legal basis that exists. There are also privacy concerns, and let's say, since this data is personal data, that also can be a big challenge in terms of accessing the vehicle owner holder data. Then in terms of the solutions that we are learning, we are getting some interesting inputs as well. Cities are telling us that there can be some existing data sharing mechanisms which exist at the EU level and are being used in other cases. So for example, UCARIS, that can be helpful for the purposes of UVAR enforcement, for the purposes of sharing data for UVAR enforcement. Some cities have indicated that this data can also be accessed through registration, but there are multiple registrations required at the moment. So if in case there is a process that can be established to have a single registration, that can also be helpful in accessing the relevant vehicle and vehicle owner holder data for enforcement of UVARs. Some cities have indicated that this information for UVAR enforcement can also be had from the vehicles itself by indicating or by placing an equipment or an electronic chip inside the vehicle that can directly communicate with the city or road infrastructure. So we are getting some inputs also in terms of the different solutions that the cities would like to see for accessing the different data for the purposes of enforcing UVARs. Now, I'm referring to these solutions here because they are also somewhat aligned to what we are discovering in parallel with our desk work and the interviews that we are having with different stakeholders. And this is allowing us to appreciate that what kind of different solution models can exist to facilitate access to the relevant data for UVAR enforcement. So we are trying to sort of map what are the different solution models, and we are seeing that there are till date 3 different solution models that we can identify. One is the authority-centric model that we've been able to identify. Then there is a driver-centric model, and there is also a vehicle-centric model for data sharing in the context of UVARs. So it is an interesting thing that we are seeing. Coming quickly to some of the key points of these different models, we've of course only started to sort of understand what are the different elements at a technical, legal and administrative level for each of these models. So we are starting the process of sort of detailing each particular model, but we are identifying already some good information on each of these models. Under the authority-centric model, essentially the data sharing is happening via exchange of data between different vehicle registration authorities. An example of this model is, of course, UCARIS, where different vehicle registration authorities can connect to each other and provide information on the relevant data about the vehicles, but also the data related to the vehicle owner holder. And there is a system of national contact points that exists within the example of UCARIS, where there are vehicle registration authorities that are able to share the vehicle data already in other contexts. And this can be an interesting model that can be applied also for UVARs. Some of the interesting features, of course, of this model are that there is no requirement of or an active role required on part of the driver or the owner of the vehicle, as they do not have to register. So this is an interesting feature that can address some of the challenges that are being described by the cities. There is also another feature in terms of the range of different traffic offenses that can be sort of addressed via the use of this model. That is also something that makes it interesting for consideration for the purposes of UVAR enforcement. Here, offenses which require different sorts of data, not essentially vehicle data at a first level, but directly the vehicle owner holder data can be sort of addressed via the use of this particular model. So we are going to consider it more in detail as we progress within the framework of UVAR exchange. The second model is the driver-centric model. It is somewhat different from the authority-centric model. Here, the example is in terms of a solution that is being worked upon by IN Group France. IN Group France is a company which is owned by the French government, and it has been working for a long period on issuing digital identities and working on a large scale in terms of issuing digital identities. And they have been working on a solution which is focused on sort of providing a digital statement or a verifiable credential that can be issued to different vehicle owners or vehicle holders. And this is something that can help the city authorities or enforcement authorities access the relevant data that they need for the purposes of UVAR enforcement. And this particular model has some features which are similar to the certification that is being seen within the COVID-19 framework, where there is a mutual recognition of certificates that happens at the EU level. So a certificate issued within one member state is recognized across the EU. So that is an interesting feature that this model offers, where it can help in reducing the number of registrations that may be required, because you are allowing to issue a certificate that may become recognizable across the EUs, across different cities, and may allow enforcement authorities to have the information that they require on the vehicle as well as on the vehicle owner holder in order to enforce the UVARs. And
sorry, you have 5 more minutes.
Yes, I'll quickly wrap up. So this is one of the models that we are looking at, and as I mentioned, there are some key features that this model has to offer, especially to the point that was mentioned earlier about the dynamicity or fluctuations in UVARs that happen. It can accommodate those aspects as well, and it is a model that can also help drivers access relevant information about the UVARs, allowing them to navigate different zones. Then the third model that we are looking at is the vehicle-centric model, which is exemplified by the extended vehicle concept, which is being developed by the vehicle manufacturers. And here we see that under this model, information can be provided to the cities and enforcement authorities through the vehicle itself, through a connected vehicle itself. And this is something that can be used for a range of different services, a range of different purposes, but can also find application in UVARs, where the vehicle itself becomes the source for the data that may be required for UVAR enforcement. So we are also considering this particular model in the framework of the UVAR exchange project. Now, as we progress in the project, we'll of course keep on developing on a technical level and also on the legal level and administrative level the requirements, describing it more in detail, each particular model, what are their pros and cons. We'll look at the opportunities and the challenges that each particular model offers. So this is the work that we'll be doing in the coming period of UVAR exchange. We will also be using demonstrations to understand this particular aspect, and this is the work that we intend to do in session 3 today, trying to understand what demonstrations are feasible for the different models that we've discussed earlier. Now we're going to look at what are the requirements for the different stakeholders, such as cities, the vehicle registration authorities, the solution providers, and how we can proceed further in developing different demonstrations, because these demonstrations will also help us appreciate what can work and what cannot work, and allow us to practically study in detail the different models. It might be possible that there will be different levels of demonstrations that we develop, because each of the model that we described, they have different maturity levels as well. So remains to be seen in today's discussion as well. And this is the next phase of work that we intend to start. And with this, I think we'll be able to also develop more concrete recommendations to help the work that the EU wants to do in this aspect. With this, I think I'll conclude my presentation. So thank you for bearing with me. I hope I didn't use my time.
Perfect. We still have like 2-3 minutes. Maybe I can, there is a question from Thomas Limes. He says, since January 2020, new vehicles must be equipped with onboard fuel consumption measurements devices, allowing EU authorities to collect data on fuel energy consumption. Are you looking at the potential on these data exclusively used for emissions monitoring for compliance purposes for the moment? Would that help UVAR enforcement, in your opinion?
I'm sorry, I'll probably look at the,
oh yeah, the chat.
Look at the question once again.
Yeah, it's way up, but I can paste it again on the chat if you want.
Mm-hmm.
Shall I? Okay. This is the question of Thomas.
Okay. So authorities to collect data on. Certainly, I mean, we are trying to understand essentially in task to how the data can be exchanged between countries. So if there are potential ways of accessing the data that is required for UR enforcement, and if there are certain new suggestions coming up in this line which can help cities and enforcement authorities access this data, we will be taking them on board certainly, and trying to sort of add this to our study. So if in case you have such awareness and such suggestions, please do inform us about it, and we will include it in our study, because we are trying to map exhaustively, as exhaustively as we can, the different, let's say, solutions or different ways in which the data can be accessed by the city authorities and enforcement authorities.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and I think we will continue with the next questions. I have written all the questions and comments, and we can probably discuss them during the sessions or in panel sessions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So now I will share again my screen before we go in on a short break. I hope you can see my screen now. So right now what will happen is that we will, we will go on a short break, and after those 15 minutes at 10:30 we'll be back for 2 of the parallel sessions. Parallel session will be in this same link that we are right now. So please, if you are interested in session 1, please stay here, just turn off your microphone and your camera during the break. For session 2, I'm just sending the link via the chat, but however, you also have it in your confirmation email from Eventbrite. That will happen at the same time from 10:30 to 11:30. After those 2 sessions, we will have a short break of 15 minutes, and then 11:45, we will start with session 3. You are all invited. It's really also an interesting session, and we would like to have you there. You also have that link in that session. However, my colleagues will share the link, or I will share it here, and my colleagues in session 2 will share it as well there. And then wrap up, we will kindly invite you to come back to this original link of the plenary, and Lucy will do a really nice debriefing of the meeting. So for now, with I think that's also, I don't know if anyone has some questions. Yes, subject 1, I will come back here. Session 1 is on physical science for UVARs. Session 2 is on CITS. Thank you, Lucy. So we invite you to please all the sessions, of course, 1 and 2 are in parallel, so you will have to choose which one do you like the most. But we will invite you to session 3, all of you. It will be really, really interesting as well. So for now, I would say let's have a break of, we are early now, we have 20 minutes. So at 11:30, I hope to see you all in both of the sessions. Thank you so much. I see that slowly everyone's coming back. Welcome everyone back to session 1. We will start in 2 minutes. So welcome everyone. I think you are here now. This is session 1. Session 2, you should follow the link that was sent to you by the registration link. So please, I will give the word to Cosimo.
Yeah. Thank you. So welcome to the session 1. Carolina, I think I can share my screen, right? It's maybe
Please share your screen.
better.
Yes.
Okay, I maybe won't look at the chat. So in the meantime, well, I kindly ask you to okay. Just to show up, open up your microphone and of course say something, because now we will have 1 hour to work together. Okay, so let's start. I will be briefly introduce you to the Miro board that we have created. Not all the elements that are in the Miro board will be part of our discussion today, but it's just to present you how we have organized this, let's say, collaborative environment, how we would like also to organize the upcoming collaborative activities, also virtual ones. Let's start with this. So we will have the first, you can, of course, please zoom in and zoom out. There's no need to, let's say, to take sticky notes and to make it bigger. You can, of course, really use the zoom in order to look at the different frames. Let's start with this first subframe.
Sorry, Cosimo, I just would like to say I just pasted the link to your Miro session. Session 1 is the last link that I just pasted. So if you don't have it by hand, here it is.
Okay, yes, that's relevant because you can, of course, follow my screen or just be there with your yeah, I'm seeing there are a lot of people already surfing into the video. So let me first explain a little bit how we would like to organize the discussion. First, as I said, we will need to deal, or at least we would like to collect feedbacks and to have a discussion, say first discussion like 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes about elements related to the complexity of an UVAR scheme, because we have different types of UVAR, as I presented before, and we can have also different ways of organizing an UVAR and having this look at different, for example, size essential boundaries, elements that makes the UVAR functioning because of the presence also of different rules, for example, that might have an influence on the type of information provision we could try to figure out into a clear road signage. For example, we can have a very typical example of a protected city core, a historical center, where we can have, that's an example from Reggio Emilia. You have the historical city center protected by camera in a limited traffic zone, and really at the core, you may have some moving bollards protecting, for example, a pedestrian area. This is really a typical example. And in terms of complexity, it's not so complex. We are pretty much in an era in which city centers are not open at all to traffic, to through traffic. Of course, there's an influence in the size of an LTZ, for example. How big is the city core? And I show previously I mentioned that Siena, the entire historical center of Siena, is a limited traffic zone, so it's quite big. When you have a concentric and you have clear borders, that may be also easy. Sometimes there are areas that are separated one another, so we call it these sectors. We may have also other situations in which, like, for example, you have, again, this is really also based the example from Gen, avoiding through traffic to pass from one sector to another. So you can have, again, a set of bollards and a set of cameras avoiding to pass from one sector to another. And this is another way of having a further level of complexity that might be also avoided in terms of wrong driving behavior through proper signage or through the use of fixed bollards against, for example, camera related. Then you have other concentric low emission zone and ultra low. This is really typical. You have two cases here, and the case of London, where you have a low emission zone, an ultra LEDs, and a congestion charge really in the middle. So you can put your feedbacks and try to think about the possible implication in terms of correct information for road signage. And of course, you can have also different situation. This is the case of Rome, where you have a low emission zone in place, an ultra low emission zone. You can have daytime LTZ in the city core, but during the night there might be some more areas protected with cameras. You can have also rules applying for freight only, for example, and not for the general motor traffic. And we put also this further example of a situation in which you do not have just one sole core protected core, but you can have also LTZ or pedestrian areas that are fragmented at district level, for example. So which are the implications in your views? Which you can, of course, the case from Paris is a case in which you have also temporary UVARs. They are not, of course, the blue ones are in place for the whole year, but some others are in place also only during public holidays, Sundays, or during summer, for example. This is the first frame. You can be really free to comment, just take one of these stickers and move it here, and you then start writing something. Of course, this allows us to, we can open up a discussion in a minute. And then you can see in the number 2, in the subframe number 2, we have grouped some, of course, the different typologies of our signs. We have, in some cases, the use of a brand name for the scheme. The brand name is something that might increase clarity or provide an additional element to be communicated. Madrid Central is no longer named Madrid Central, but becomes Madrid Distrito Centro, for example. Area C is the congestion charge in the city of Milan. And as you can see, there are some highlighted borders on the signage that have been used at the very beginning together with VMS to communicate that there's a gate there, and then maybe you should be aware of the fact that passing through that gate, of course, there's a camera enforcement, etc. So what about the brand name? Do they really add something? Do they really, or maybe add a complexity, a further level of complexity? That's the the first typology of road signs that we have started to analyze. Then, of course, we have the vertical signs at boundary, at gates. We can have different types of vertical signs. We have horizontal signs that are increasingly used to improve the clarity of the scheme and the borders also, the fact that you are entering in a specified UVAR area, a zonal area. And then the advanced warning signs. There are different types of advanced warning signs. There are those put really far from the entrance or on a motorway, for example. There are some other put really while approaching the gate, so allowing drivers to make a detour, to not to be fined by passing through the gate, for example. Some of these signs are mandatory in some European countries. So again, this is also something that maybe is a way of improving the level of communication. And please don't forget that all the elements are relevant here. So like not only the type of sites that you may have in your country, in your city, and for us it would be really beneficial to have a reference here and to have your views, but also elements like the type of message, the type of pictograms used, the distance, the size of the signs or the characters, etc. Variable messages signs are exactly the most flexible ways of addressing drivers. And we have one example from Lille, maybe there's pictures from Lille. Another one of mandatory VMS in Italy at LTZ gates, for example, particularly relevant for those who have a temporal validity. So you know when is on, when is off. So this is really the subframe where we can focus on the type of road signs that we would like to improve. But I think that the vast majority of the time I would like to invest today with you is also on our approach to low emission zone signs, because, and I will also kindly ask the colleagues from Corte to support me, because there are, of course, discussion ongoing about the new signs, for example, that's in some countries have been introduced. So for indicating inside the red circle, you have a polluting car. And this example is from Belgium, from Spain, from Sweden. We try to figure out for 4 families of these approaches. There's one that is more conventional and visual, where you don't have any innovation in terms of using a different road sign. You have the typical zonal road sign with no motor traffic, and the information about exempted exceptions in terms of, for example, in this case for France, the stickers, the vignette icons, the type of vehicles, the validity in days and times, and through the use of sub-panels, of supplementary panels. That is also a way of organizing information. This is conventional visual because there are big letters, icons, symbols, But it's conventional because they are not introducing a new road signs. They are simply using what is already there. There's another family, let's say, there's another approach in the conventional textual. You have more text. In the Italian case, for example, you don't have only the word zona, but zona traffico limitato, for example. And you can see that some information are put above the road signs. In the supplementary panels, you have, again, text and not symbols. And this is what we have indicated as conventional textual. That might be a problem when, for example, approaching an UVAR or also at gate. That's something we would like also to think about it. There's an innovative unconventional that is making use of new road signs. And there's currently, of course, a discussion at the UNIC level with the UN working group on signs and signals. Corte is in contact with this. And I hope there will be also someone from that group present here. And that the discussion here is about the opportunity of introducing a new symbol. Is it beneficial? Maybe for the low emission zone is really beneficial because you can really recognize that symbol also when it's put, for example, on a motorway and it's big. That's, of course, something that is introducing something that is not in line with the Vienna Convention. So, of course, is unconventional. There are some other semi-conventional but visual where you have the use of pictograms other than text, and where, for example, you have a text inside the main panel. So these are the environmental zone, the low emission zone, using text instead of a pictogram. So it's semi-conventional but visual. These are the families, and we would like also to kindly ask you to vote with stars if you think we would need to look at such type of organizing information and symbols and text in a proper manner also for the rest of the UVAR typology that we have previously introduced to you. Before going, let me just jump into the third, into this, let's say, side subframe where we started to collect example of advanced warning or at gate boundary signs from different cities. For the moment, we were forced to do this simply using Google Street View. We are aware of the fact that some of these photos are old, but are relevant because we can have a flavor of what's the practice, and we would like to give you also the possibility to look at real photo. You can find the link to Google Street View, so you can go and maybe move around the streets to see in which situation some signs are used. You can see, for example, here in Harus in Denmark, where there's where the use of a zonal sign is put exactly at this distance. And we were wondering if, for example, at this level, maybe having a symbol instead of a text would be better. And that's the type of, like, for example, in this example from Rotterdam. We have different example. You can find the textual one. You can find some more combined and, let's say, less informative road signs, so something might be less. We are not intended to discuss about it, but it's for you to look at real examples and maybe put your photos and location that will be beneficial also for our work. So that will be the type of collaborative work we would like to organize also with the participating cities and followers. And then we can have a discussion, but not now, not during this occasion, about the improved clarity of signs, talking about, for example, certain use of stickers, vignette, and in the future, we might have, let's say, a working area where we can try to combine better and discuss around a certain proper optimal use of text, combined use of text and pictograms. This will be done in our collaborative work, not now. And here you can find what is feasible and useful in a demo on UVAR signage. There are different of course, let's do not move the text, but just try to use the stickers. You can take your sticker from here, for example, and put it where you want. You can use the zoom, as I said, and you can also use the stars. That was really a first introduction by my side, but I would like to give the floor while most of you will be surfing into the areas and can combine, but I would like to open up a discussion now. So just to give you the possibility to provide your feedbacks, maybe we can start from having just a few minutes focusing on these elements. So the complexity implication on road signage. There was a question during my presentation about the opportunity of, for example, including new categories, new information. That would be also something that is in line with the increasing level of complexity. So that's all by my side. I cannot see you on apart from Carolina. So if we can start. Who would like to start having a discussion?
Cosimo?
Yeah. Yeah.
If I take a word just for a short intervention, thank you very much for this. This is Marusha from Court. I've been working together with Cosimo on this task. Today, here we have Mr. Robert Novak from the UNEC Secretariat, who just left a little message on the chat that he could explain the system of the Vienna Convention on road signs shortly. So if you agree, perhaps we could give a word to him.
Of course.
Mr. Novak, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for inviting UNEC as well as the chair of the group of experts on road signs and signals, Mr. Karel Hoffman, who on a daily basis works for the government of Belgium, and I'm sure that he will want to complement my very short intervention. So. What is, I think, important for all of you to, before you actually start writing on these sticky notes and providing your inputs, I think what is important is for you to hear a kind of a very short summary of the system of the 1968 Convention on the Road Signs and Signals, because the convention actually provides you with not only with a system but a certain framework which aims at actually reaching your ultimate goal of harmonization. So before you actually do this, I think it's quite useful for you to know what the convention is all about. So I will not spend more than 3 minutes. I will go quite fast. I am available here if anybody has any questions, follow-up questions later on. So in fact, what you call the Vienna Convention, we have two Vienna Conventions. So there's a 1968 Convention on the Road Traffic, which I don't want to speak about, and there's its sister 1968 Convention on the Road Signs and Signals. It is not a European convention; it is a global convention. And in fact, what is interesting that this is, again, my focus is on harmonization. What is interesting that within Europe and within the EU, you have countries, important countries or large economies, which are not part of this convention, which are not contracting parties. So the key exemptions in Europe are Turkey, Spain, the United Kingdom, Ireland, and Iceland. So here this is the first issue for you, or a challenge, because these countries are not actually harmonizing vis-a-vis all the remaining European countries. So some of the examples that you have shown today are actually English signs, which by definition are very different from everybody else's. So this is point number one. The second point is that the 1968 Convention on Road Signs and Signals actually uses the system, and the system is very simple. That it's the system relies on shapes, colors, and no inscriptions. To the extent it's possible, inscriptions or words are discouraged. So the idea here is that that if you're looking at your examples, the fewer the words, the better it is from the perspective of the convention. And this is the rationale here is quite simple, because because the convention is international. It is global. You don't want to see some Chinese, Arabic, or Russian, or Spanish, for that matter, or English inscriptions, because that makes it a domestic system. It doesn't make it internationally recognized system. So for me to go to India and look at Indian inscriptions, that would be a problem. So you understand that that you want to really concentrate on shapes, colors, and very as few words as possible. Another issue here is that the convention itself, despite the fact that it has a very good system, which is based on, actually it allows some flexibility. So it is not wrong for countries to use, let's say, different colors, because sometimes the convention itself provides the option of using a different color. For example, for the background. Okay, sometimes it's, for example, green is allowed, and sometimes it's blue is allowed. Okay, so here you may see on your examples different colors, but this is from the point of from the perspective of the convention. This is a legitimate option. In addition to this, the convention sometimes it's not very precise, because sometimes it talks about, for example, dark ground or light ground. Okay, and it's up to the given country to decide what the meaning of dark is, or dark color, and what is the meaning of the light color. So here you may have, for example, for the light ones, you may have yellow or white, for example. They're both light. However, they are not the same. So in terms of the harmonization, you may also end up with different color schemes. And again, from the perspective of the convention, they will be legitimate. In terms of additional, and this is the last point I believe I want to mention. Well, I have two more points. In terms of, in addition to flexibility, the convention offers what we call over 250 reference signs. Okay, and symbols. Okay, a sign is the whole thing, and a symbol is, when you look at the screen, the little vehicle there, belting out smoke. That would be a symbol. So the convention actually says, this is what you have, and if you really need to develop a new sign or a new symbol, you can do it. We can do it, but there's one condition, that you as a country you have to seek what is called a regional agreement. And the Global Forum for Road Traffic Safety, WP1, of which I am secretary, has decided that seeking the regional agreement means going to WP1 and actually discussing a new sign or a new symbol. So here you have an attempt within the convention to actually minimize the differences. So if you really have to have something new, the idea here is, for example, for France, to talk to the Benelux countries and to speak to Germany, for example, and seek some kind of regional agreement. The final point that I wish to make is the issue of the jurisdiction, because I've been hearing a lot about the cities and the metropolitan areas. So from the perspective of the convention, the cities or metropolitan areas do not really exist. It has to be done on a national level or a federal level or some kind of aggregate level, because cities, as much as we like them and as much we support them, the cities or towns are not really contracting parties. By definition, they cannot accede to the convention. So there is a problematic here in some sense, looking at the countries at the national level and the legislation and the jurisdiction, and that includes enforcement and so on and so on. But it is important to make sure that what is done at the city level is in full conformity with national legislation in a given country. And the final point I want to make is that we've, for the last several years, we've had WP1 created the group of experts on road signs and signals. And this group, we have a chair, Mr. Karl Hoffman, with us. He may wish to speak a little bit about this group. The group is just about to end its deliberations, and it has proposed a number of tremendous amendment proposal to the 1968 Convention on Road Traffic, and these amendments most likely will be adopted, or at least they will be considered for adoption in March 2022. So in fact, if this is the case, the convention may actually be drastically changed, not in terms of the actual signs and symbols, but in terms of its structure, first of all. So this is, I've been speaking way too much, so I want to thank you for inviting me, and if should you need any information about the 1968 Convention on Road Traffic and 1968 Convention on Road Signs and Signals, or any other road safety conventions, I will be very happy to answer either now or in a future date. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Novak. It's very important, and we also would like to underline the fact that our work maybe won't be in a direction of really discussing possible improvements in terms of elements that are, let's say, not in line with the UN Convention, with the Vienna Convention, but more also looking at how certain practices, use of symbols, use of text can be improved. For example, looking at some good practices from some cities, but we have, and Korte, maybe Mariuszka, you can add something more. There's also this way of trying to provide a kind of support to the type of discussion that you are, of course, already doing within your group. But of course, there are elements in which we would like to focus more, but it's that are linked to the different typologies of UVAR road signs, if they are appropriate. Of course, here you can have examples from Spain or from the UK that are not really in line with the they are not under the Vienna Convention, but there are others that, on the contrary, are pretty aligned, and maybe they make a quite good use of certain, for example, elements, particularly using supplementary panels. We have also seen there's a kind of evolution in some countries. It's good also to underline that in countries where there's not this convention in force, then you can have really UVAR that are not so clear. We have, for example, in many Spanish cities, we have UVARs that are indicated differently in every city. So I think that would be very relevant and useful to also to analyze what is possible, what can be improved by simply using a better combination of what Mr. Nova said, the flexibility that the convention already gives.
I don't want to interrupt you, but I think nobody has filled anything and we have half an hour. So I really think maybe the best thing to proceed is to tell the participants exactly like, okay, please could you go to section 1, put a sticker note and then start working on it, and maybe dedicate 5 minutes for each section.
Exactly.
I see Robert has a question or a remark, but Robert, could you please keep it until the closing remarks before 5 minutes before, so at 11:25 we will have some closing remarks from this session. But I would really appreciate that everyone starts putting some stickers and comments on each question that you have there. You can see in number 1, there is a proper remark, in number 2, A to B. So if you could start writing one sticky note one comment in each of the sticky notes, that would be really appreciated. If you by any chance cannot do it and you tell me, please, Carolina, can you paste it here and there? I can also support you that via the chat. Sorry, Cosimo, I just wanted to make a remark.
Maybe
the time being.
It's maybe during these 5 minutes, let's say people are trying to focus on the first frame. But really, what I would like to, but that is also an element for which we would like to have your view. But for the purpose, particularly of our work, we are really interested in subframe number 2, particularly 2A and 2B. Because there is where we will focus more our attention, and we will try to understand how we can improve the clarity of certain road signs. If there are, we can, in the meantime, we are already someone who is, please put in brackets your organization name or your name also, so that we know who is typing a sticky note. And if there's somebody else who would like to comment instead of simply writing a sticky notes, we can do it while discussing.
Cosimo, I think George Brenner has a question.
Please, George.
Says, maybe George, if you would like to turn on your microphone, your camera, and ask the question.
Yes, thank you. It was actually for Mr. Novak to just give us as an example how you would design a new traffic sign, like a zero emission sign. What would it look like, and what would be the process to coordinate it with other actors to have it established?
Yes, Robert?
Mr. Novak?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the question. There are actually two ways of doing this, and actually you have on the screen you have examples. These two different schools of approaching this. So in fact, I believe that the convention and its system and the elements which already exist in the convention, including the specific provisions, already allow you to create a low emission zone sign. So we have a template for the zonal sign, which is that you see it, the one which says zone and so on, and then you would in addition to this you would use some extra elements. So the convention actually allows you to write at the bottom of the panel whatever needs to be put there, and in addition to this, the convention also allows you what we call H category signs or additional panels, which are the panels which typically are placed at below the sign itself. Okay, so on the right hand side you would see the additional panel with this on the left hand side. I think it's a Portuguese sign, so you have the two additional panels with text there. This is I believe this is Portuguese. Okay, it actually uses all the elements that and the system of the convention to indicate what is meant to be indicated. The other school of thought is to actually create some new elements, and this is on the right hand side. I believe you have a Belgian example at the top with the vehicle belting out smoke. You see, as of today, there's no such a symbol in the convention. So we have a symbol of a vehicle, but we don't have a symbol of a vehicle spewing out smoke. So this is a new symbol. So this country, I don't know if it's Belgium or some other country. So in this particular case, this country has decided to I don't know what's a good word, to create a new symbol to indicate that this specific phenomenon, because someone in Brussels or somewhere has decided that this is a more powerful or a more animated type of symbol to convey the specific message, as opposed to the previous one, which actually followed the elements which already exist in the convention. So here we can argue which approach is better, but also, of course, there's a pros and cons of using the systemic elements which already exist, and there's a different set of pros and cons of actually creating a new symbol to convey a certain message. But this is basically, you have two schools of thoughts. On the other side, on the right hand side, you see that the colored circles there. Okay, this does not exist. For example, at the bottom there, we have a red, yellow, and green circles. I cannot really see what is there, but this is completely meaningless for someone like me. Okay, and I was born in Europe, and the convention is I work with the convention, so it's I think if it's a German sign, that I would not understand what it means. So here you have an example of using new symbols, which perhaps not everyone is familiar with. And then I go back to this idea that if you really want to introduce in your country a new symbol or a new sign, you really have to go regional at the minimum. Well, you can always go optimally. You can actually go and try to amend the convention itself. So the new sign or symbol is applicable to everybody, to all 68 countries in the world. But then if you're not willing to do this, the requirement in the convention is to at the minimum to go regionally, because again, we put up the signs not only for the German citizens or the French citizens, but there's also tourists, there's transit traffic, and so on and so on. So it is really important to have the meaning and the significance of these new signs and symbols well understood. And again, if you see the vehicle spewing out smoke, okay, I guess everyone understands this. But when I'm looking at the three colored circles there, I have no idea what it is. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
There's a question from Johannes Bauer. Johannes, if you want to turn on your camera, then it makes it a little bit more interactive, and your microphone, please.
Sure, thank you. I actually would give some comment for from the perspective of vehicle manufacturers. So any sign here on this display is in terms of recognition for vehicles actually not possible to read. So the cameras in the vehicles, they cannot read these signs. They have big issues, especially when you have additional information like time, period of season, or something like that. So if you look for new signs, they should be anyway as simple as possible with as little information additionally as possible. But these signs we talk here about need to be somehow placed into navigation software, because cameras have absolutely no chance to identify them, because we see there is a big variation already, and if there is something new, it's not getting better. So that's the first thing. The second thing, if they are positioned in navigation, then the question from I think this morning about temporary zones and moving borders or something like that makes it also difficult, because navigation is not reacting that quick, and as long as we do not have fully car to car and car to whatever communication, I think we have to rely on the navigation data, and up to date it takes 3 to 6 months to update this software. And when you have the brand new software then in the vehicle, it's already old. So this is actually from manufacturer's perspective, keep it as simple as possible. And as a driver, I actually trapped once in a zona traffica limitato in Italy. I haven't seen that sign, but I got then a nice enforcement of 160 or 90 euros or something. As a driver, I would also say, especially when you're a foreign driver, also keep it as simple as possible. The more information there is on, especially if you do not speak the language, the more difficult it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Johannes. I would also appreciate if you could paste these ones also like a sticky notes on the mirror. That would be great. Cosimo, there is I think Lucy wants to say something, but I don't know if you wanted to say something as well. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's difficult. There's lots of different factors here. We have some of the driver organizations saying we need to have enough information to understand what the sign means. And we have the OEM saying as little information as possible. So it's squaring a circle almost sometimes. Into one of the, going back to what Mr. Novak, Robert Novak said, is some of the problems we hear from the drivers organization is the German sign, which is a red sign with Umwelt, or the Dutch one with a red sign with Milieuzone, is that's hard to understand. So I can see that some words are more of a problem than the words Euro 2, Euro 3, or permit, permitter, or excepto, exceptions, some words that are similar in many languages. It's getting the balance. I don't know what anybody has to say to those comments.
Just to add, yes, it's true. This family of the conventional textual, this is Portuguese road signs, but it's very similar to what happened in LTZ in Italy, where you have a lot of text. And of course, that's the type of information that is not really useful for people coming from for foreign vehicle, foreign drivers to understand. What we think that in this family might be relevant and interesting is the use of pictograms. I don't know if the use of symbols in supplementary panels is something that cameras inside the vehicles can understand, like, for example, having just a few words or a codified a way of recognizing that this road sign. So it's, of course, there's something that's no motor traffic allowed, except difficult to read, difficult to understand if you have a vignette system. But maybe, I don't know, maybe it could be that using certain pictograms or symbols that could be also beneficial, both from the cameras, but of course also for people driving from abroad in another countries and not having the chance to understand the textual information. This is how we would like also to orientate our work, the type of suggestions we would like to give. Somebody else would you like to tell us something?
I see that Johannes also has still his hand. Maybe Johannes, you want to say something? And Lucy also.
No, that's from done.
Okay.
And of course, in the meantime, you can continue to contribute.
Oh yeah, see, Christina has her hand raised. So maybe Christina.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to say it's nice to focus on the cameras in the cars, but I think the focus shouldn't be too much on that, because we're speaking about old vehicles that cannot drive in the zone. So these will not have these cameras in their cars to recognize the low emission zone. And speaking of the experience we have with the city of Antwerp, we try to introduce more clear signs. Yeah, we have in Belgium indeed the sign that is not according to the Convention of Vienna, but so there's not so much information. We always get comments that people didn't see it, that they didn't know what it was. And we always get the comment as well that too much information indeed will not be read by the drivers, especially when they're driving quite fast. They will not know what's on the sign, so that's really a problem. And I find it very difficult to find indeed a good solution for this. I think symbols, universal symbols, would be very, very welcome so also visitors can know where the zone begins. Thank you. I just wanted to
thank you.
say that.
Thank you, Christina. That's for the horizontal sign, for example, we can see that symbols or words are not so not understandable. And this is maybe linked to some of the comments related to the brand name, or what is better to put more in evidence also on the roadside. I have to say that I've noticed that both in Belgium, you try to make a step further in increasing clarity. There are limit traffic zone in Excels in Brussels that is really tiny, but still there are some really, really small symbols and words above the main panel that is allowed by the convention, but it's maybe not so clear. And there's a way of improving the level of information. Another practice is sometimes to put the pedestrian priority symbol above, but this simply means gives you information about the type of behavior, about the type of situation you may encounter, but not giving you precise instruction of what is if you are allowed to enter or not. And definitely the discussion around the low emission zone is what we would like, of course, to have your feedbacks also to collect and to your photos, experience about it. So please continue to contribute. And please, Carolina, remember me that at the end we will need also to focus on what is feasible. So we will need to have a final discussion about the prospected activities apart for this collaborative environment that could continue to be online and involve cities.
Perfect. We have a question from Karel Hoffman. Karel, if you would like to turn on your microphone.
Yes, thank you very much, and good morning to everyone. I am Karel Hoffman. I'm the chair for the expert group on road signs and signals within the UNECE. Robert already explained it very well. But I just one thing to add, because I also noticed in the chat that it is really a hot topic, so to speak, to have a clear-cut sign indicating a low emission zone. And what I wanted to say is that we launched a survey, the Secretariat and myself, which was sent to all the governmental delegates which are present in the expert group on road signs and signals. We made a list of possible topics, and one of the topics which came up ahead within the survey was exactly the low emission zones. So this means that during the current meeting or meetings of our expert group on road signs and signals, we will work on a sign, a harmonized sign indicating low emission zones, which will be put into the convention. So this will be the best way to harmonize things. I hope we will get there, because it's not so easy when you look and you see all the different signs which are used in different countries. But I think if we work in a constructive way, we can find a way which also takes into account the comments which were made by the car manufacturers, which think it should not be all too complicated and not too much text. But I think the same goes for the users. They also think, I think that for the users as well, the easiest thing to understand a road sign is when there are symbols and not too much text as well. So let's see what it gives, but just to indicate that we will be working on it during the next meetings of the expert group on road signs and signals. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I hope also it can help the discussion around your working group. The fact that in the end, we would like to have cities collaborating with us within this task. So I see already Barcelona, Antwerp. I hope also other cities will join us to be demonstrator. I would like really to point out the fact that we are really, we do not think we can really implement something in practice. So installing new road signs. apart for those cities that are something in place that are implementing a new UVAR. But definitely the discussion around this type of information, the possibilities to have, for example, in some cities, supplementary advanced warning signs that could improve the information given to the drivers before the gates, before entering a certain area. That would be a type of exercise that we can maybe also do, improving the level of information or the clarity of symbols in supplementary panels or in main panels. That's the type of activities we would like to have. And of course, we have also the flexibility of variable message signs that could allow this, or the fact that in some countries, like for example in Italy, there are already guidelines, standards that cities have to deal with in providing information while for implementing a UVAR scheme. I'm just surfing and try to see if there's some other. But we need to come back, right? Carolina, what's the time?
We still have 6 minutes left before we go on a break.
Okay.
So I will suggest all the participants to please look at the board. I know it's really populated, but to start filling in as much as possible, although this one will remain open.
Exactly.
So we will encourage you to please, when you ever have time or during your break, to please also fill in some of these session sticky notes.
Exactly. In this fourth subframe, we try to figure out a number of possible activities we might have in a demo, as I was saying. So please, if you think some might be useful, applicable, we know that, of course, it's not possible to change the structure of a road sign because of some national, of course, guidelines or rules to be followed. But maybe we can also try to imagine that we may install some supplementary panels. We may use VMS or have a better positioning and trying to also to transfer the practice from one city to other cities. And this is really something that we think is still missing in the UVAR domain. So there are a lot of practice. Some are really at national level, giving also guidelines, very clear guidelines. But in some other elements, there are cities that have already had a way of implementing improving information through road signage. So this is really something we would like from you. And of course, please indicate if you are willing to work with us also within this collaborative virtual platform and in a discussion where we can discuss exactly about these elements.
I think we have time for one last question, and I think Mr. Novak is raising his hand. So please go ahead.
Yes, yes, thank you. I just remembered I had a comment about the branding. There was a question from the chair about the using some symbols or some graphics about the branding. This is I think it's an example. This is Madrid Central, so it's Spain, not a contracting party to the 1968 Convention on Road Traffic, but the convention actually prohibits this type of I don't know what to call them, signs or information which is not related to the traffic flows, and the convention is actually quite specific about this. That it is prohibited to affix anything that is unrelated to the information flow or the conveyance of information. But again, in international law, everything is subject to interpretation, and then obviously in some places it is impossible to avoid this type of things. But as a principle, this is to be avoided. Well, it is prohibited in the convention. One final comment, and this is I'm not going to say anymore. There was some chat exchanges about the flow of information between different countries in terms of driver and vehicle information. So this can be, to my knowledge, the 1968 Convention on Road Signs and Signals does not provide this type of legal provisions. However, the article I looked it up, Article 42 of the 1968 Convention on Road Traffic, which deals with the suspension of the validity of driving permits, provides certain principles and legal provisions related to the exchange of information between different countries when a country decides to suspend a driving permit of a resident of a different country, so to speak. So for traffic rules, one should look up the 68 Convention on the Road Traffic, and for the signs, it's the Sign Convention. Thank you very much, and I'm sorry, but I have to go. But I wish you all the best, and I'll be happy to be contacted if you need me. Thank you very much. Good luck to you.
Thank you, Mr. Novak. Yes, the idea to put the images from Madrid or other supplementary panels not in line with the ones following information is exactly this, that today are increasing the comprehensibility of UVAR, or they are adding a further information that is maybe the case to focus more on the road signs and improve the clarity of the road sign instead of adding other symbols, or adding, for example, symbols as horizontal road signs that are in practice not in line with the convention. It's pretty sure that we are talking about the different European countries. So we also have practices from countries not relying on the UN convention, but here is really we would like to collect information about the clarity of a scheme, about what we can do for improving the information given to the driver who is approaching, is in the vicinity, or is at gate of a UVAR, because this is something that is really sometimes missing. If you need to be informed that you need a permit, you need to have a registration before entering a zone. That's really an information that is currently missing, and we think that would be beneficial to highlight better this type of information, trying to figure out how we can use symbol, pictograms, and maybe compact words in a way that certain information are considered the core information, and that can be also understandable from other drivers.
Thank you so much, Cosimo. I think we need to cut it now because we have a break. Yeah. But I don't know if you want to say one more minute of conclusion, or we leave it like this. Cosimo?
The platform will remain open. I think you have the address. You can continue putting your comments. That's the idea for now, just to give you an idea of what we would like to do. It's very important to collect your information and your views on the different typologies of road signs, on your experience, photos or links to Google Street View or real photos, and also some other discussion about what is feasible or not in particularly this one in a demo. So please continue to contribute, and in case, of course, we can discuss further during the plenary or also at the conclusion.
Okay, and I see Lucy has a question.
Yeah. Just in case anybody can't go back to the plenary at the end, Cosimo put his email address in the chat. So please do carry on with the Miro board into the break for the next week, or certainly by the end of this year. If you want to have any further discussions about take what could be possible, what you could do with your city, how you could be involved, please do email Cosimo. We would really, really want to take this forward with you. The issue about information up front is a really important issue, and that's being tackled by the UVAR Box project. There are links in the chat. Please, cities, if you haven't already, and ministries, if you're not involved with the UVAR Box project, please be so. And the EU's single digital gateway is looking into proactive information where you can register. Again, you'll be required to do this very shortly. Link with the UVAR Box.
Yeah, it's very important also to say that we will collect best practices and information and recommendation coming from national guidelines. I've seen that Fabio Nusso from the city of Rome is referring to the Italian guidelines, but there are other guidelines. And we think that combining these relevant tools would be also beneficial for creating, let's say, one first recommendation document or guidelines at EU level. So that's my email address. We will, of course, forward you also later on together with the presentation. And again, the link to the Miro, right, Carolina?
Yes, yes, we will send everything this afternoon. Thank you so much, Cosimo. So what we will do now is a 10-minute break, sorry. At 11:45, we will start with the next session, which starts is just send the link. I'm sending it already again. So please join us for session 3, and we see you in 10 minutes. Thank you so much. Thank you, Cosimo.
Thank you. Thank you.
just to anybody who's still waiting here for the next session, you have to click to go to a separate room to get into the new session. See you there. Hello, can I just double check with everybody? This is the correct link for the plenary. There are still people in the session 3 session being a little bit confused. Carolina?
Yes, this is the link for the closing up, for your closing remarks. It's again on
Okay.
the plenary session.
Okay, there are still people in session 3. Can somebody paste the link maybe again in session 3? Is somebody no, I can see whether I can do it.
No, that's okay. Hi, Lucy. Frederic speaking. I just did it.
Okay, so link for session 1. Okay, I have problems getting into the last session, so it's a bit it's a bit hairy. The technology is wonderful when it works.
And so far we can't complain much.
Yeah. Okay, the 2 people I know that have complained on the other one are now in, so that's good.
Slowly but slowly, everyone's coming back. So let's wait for 2 minutes, I think, Lucy. So is that okay with you?
That's fine with me. Ring the doorbell. Was Adam home? Adam, you open the door.
Lucy, I think we should start because
Sorry, yeah. Sorry, making sure that the doorbell didn't go with my daughter coming home. Wonders of home office. Yep. I hope everybody's here. Today we heard about the 3 aspects of UVAR exchange. There's some really useful discussions, useful information for us, and information on cities wanting to be demonstrating at different levels. UVAR exchange is focused on information exchange cross-border or cross-technology. All the issues relate to making life more transparent, clearer, and easier for drivers in respect to UVARs. Increasing the information, which also increases the compliance for cities and reduces the complaints in terms of, I didn't know there was a scheme. And fairness on all sides. We can do a lot in this project, but we do need you to help us to help you. Particularly for UVAR implementers and enforcers, cities, vehicle registration authorities and ministries. What I will do is I will share my slides, which I forgot to do before I started speaking. So you can see I've just got one single slide. I'm trying to share. And there it is. We have 3 issues. One is CITS.
I'm sorry, Lucy, you don't have it in presentation mode, so we see it really, really small.
Hij zit er wel helemaal in, want hij heeft het geschreven, dus precies zijn.
Is that it? Is that better?
Perfect.
Good. CICS aspect is demonstrating emerging technologies and calling for all CATS active cities, getting the information directly from the car and directly to the car and driver to help the driver and increase the compliance. And at second level, it may be useful in enforcement and potentially also in the future in the Digital Traffic Act. It needs to be a supplementary thing as it doesn't get to the older vehicles, which is often what low emission zones are after as a particular type of UVAR. And the demonstrations are about identifying what needs to be adaptive so you can use this interesting technology for your UVARs. Looking at the road sign, we're working for an UVAR category on UCE road sign framework and support that work at the UNEC level. The lack of clear framework for the UVARs, which are relatively new, has led to a divergence in road signs, which has been raised as an issue by drivers groups. And partly we're working how to square the circle. Some people see there's too much information. Some people say it's not clear enough. We need your help to be able to make sure we have this all sides of the discussion so we can get recommendations for a really good solution. For foreigners, for people at a distance, and for vehicle cameras, and the UNEC framework itself says that pictograms are better than words. They need to be understood else at wide level. The existing signs are often variations upon a theme, so we're looking at what can be combined and work well for good practice. And that good practice will help your national drivers as well as the cross-border traffic. This project is a really good timing because there are very few, if few, zero emission zones in place now, but many are coming. Lots in, for example, in the Netherlands in 2025. So this is a good timing to get a harmonized road sign before that starts. It'll help compliance for cities, clarity, and reduce complaints. The cross-border enforcement, identification of and enforcement of foreign vehicles can be difficult. There are a spider web of bilaterals, and if you have information on those, as Rudolf said, we would love to have more information on the ones they have. But these bilaterals make this situation appear unfair for drivers in some member states and forces cities to use third-party enforcements, pre-registration, lots of additional work for cities, and apparently unfair enforcement. And it gives non-compliance issues in effective UVAR, which affects the UVAR effectiveness, especially in the border areas. So the only way forward for this that makes sense is an EU-wide solution. Cities don't want to send fines, they want compliance. So an EU-wide solution is the only way forward and benefit all sides, hauliers, road users and cities. We look forward to taking this forward with as many of you as possible. We need to find out the potential solutions, potential barriers and challenges that need to be addressed so that we can make recommendations so that these do get addressed and address as many as we can within the project. The demonstrators are looking about how far we can get currently, clarifying what needs to be addressed at a legal, technical and administrative level. And there are a number of different levels of involvement, from near-light as rear to possible near-life, dummy data mock-ups, walkthroughs of the different steps that would be needed, collaboration on our work, following and feedback on the outcomes that we come with for those cities that demonstrate and countries that are demonstrated to see how it would work in your city and your country, so that we can have a wider impact than we can for the cities and member states chosen with the demos. It's not our intention to break any rules, but see what's impossible, see what needs changing to make it more generally possible, to make everybody's life easier. We'll provide reports with recommendations for changes and also guidance on UVAR road signs. Please do register an interest, sign up in the chat, an email contact. On my screen, you can see all the links you need. There is being involved with the Miro boards. There is the contact emails, particularly for the road signs and the CITS. Please do sign up for the demonstrators. And for any cross borders, please do that haven't yet signed up. Please do as well to take things forward. Participating in the demos is also a good way of supporting the EC in their upcoming direct revisions. These will be working in parallel and overlapping with our project. The recordings and the presentations, for example, in the parallel sessions, if you wanted to be in both ones, or colleagues that couldn't get there, they will be available on the link. Please help us to help you. Pass the message forward. Cities, please talk to your ministries, and your ministries, please talk to your cities and your vehicle registration authorities, and all those responsible for different parts of the chain. Many of you have asked for these for years. Let's help to get it right to make our lives easier. Now is the time and grasp the chance. Isabel talked about win-win in her introduction, and if we get this right, it will be a win-win. So many thanks for your involvement today. It was really great to see the discussions, and look forward to seeing more of you in the next year. I've also put a link to the 2 related projects on UVAR Box, which is also about information pre-trip and getting into the sat navs, and also the reveal guidance on better UVARs, also linked. Look forward to seeing you in the next few days, weeks, years. How do we finish off now, Maria and Carolina?
Thank you so much, Lucy, for that wrap up. To finalize the session, I would just like to say thank you again on behalf of all the consortium. We were really happy to have a great attendance today. We were more than 80 people throughout the whole morning, which is awesome. As Lucy said, I just left all the links to everyone, to all our technical team, to Nuno, Jayant, Cosimo, Tito, Lucy, but I also leave here the emails from us, Pantea, as a team, Maria and Carolina, to please contact us if you have any other questions. And I will leave the last 2 or 3 minutes for Maria to say goodbye.
Thank you, Carolina. So I think it's a bit repeating the message. We were very happy that we managed to get your attention and your active participation, because I looked to all the mirrors and it was really an active participation, which will help us way better to be able to do our job properly. So I hope, as you know, this is just the first event of all the workshops that we will have until the end of the year. So you will definitely be invited, and you have all the links. So I hope we get in touch and we continue working on our UVAR exchange. So thank you very much.
I see that Isabel is there. I don't know, Isabel, do you want to say some last few words?
I just want to say thank you for this good workshop, and work well.
Thank you, Isabel, and thanks to everybody who was here today.
So Carolina, I think you wanted to take the picture where everybody could turn their cameras. Lucy could stop sharing the screen.
Oh gosh, I thought I'd done that already. Sorry.
No problem.
So yeah, that was my last word. Could you, or if you want, it's not mandatory, but it would be lovely to have all your cameras on, and let's have a nice photo. I think it would take me a while because there are, but I think at least everyone of the team is there.